Hi guys. Today's Health Knox series, as I get started here, is titled The Brain and Mind, Your Past and Your Psychological Fitness. And today I will cover and dive into not an all-extensive list on your past and things like that, but I am going to dive into some of the amazing, I think, in my opinion, professionally, landmark research that's been done on just how emotional health and your past do shape your future outcomes for health. So if you are new to the group, just join us. Go ahead, say hi, leave a comment below where you're watching from, and also I'll introduce myself. If you do not know me, my name is Dr. Trent Hippard. I am a corrective chiropractor and clinic owner of Restoration Chiropractic in West Knoxville, Tennessee. I am also the operator of this private Facebook group, Your Extraordinary Life West Knoxville, to help you with your supportive lifestyle strategies to get the most and the best health for you and your family. And so I want to welcome you to the community. Go ahead. My whole point of having this community, especially I'm operating it on my free time, is to create engagement, questions that you may have, or maybe somebody in your life that you care about, whatever may be, and help them on their journey to expressing extraordinary health in ways you never thought you could, but you can do just on your own and adding in these strategies. So as I get started here, whether you're watching live or in the replay, go ahead, say hi, leave any questions below, and I'll answer them when I get the chance after the live today. So I want to leave and start off with a quote from when I did my certification in wellness lifestyle about 4 or 5 years ago. I thought this area of health, meaning mental, emotional health, always was intriguing to me, not only because it's something that I think is challenging for a lot of folks, even myself at that time, of what is mental emotional health and what are the things that I can control and really have this empowerment back in my hands, instead of thinking like a lot of us might think, or conditional think, that emotions and thoughts we have no control over, which is not true. So here's the quote that I think will kind of get us started. Whether or not we are in a state of emotional health or stress, this is directly controlled by our internal dialogue, our thoughts regarding the interpretation of the past, the current, and future environments. So let's highlight real quick and go back over some things that I think are important in that quote. Our emotional status, whether we're stressed or we have abundant health in that regards, being flexible emotionally, is controlled by how you talk to yourself internally, yes, and your thoughts and the interpretation. So I think that's important, the interpretation, how you perceive your past, currently where you are, and of course future events. Hey Sammy, good to see you. Hey Cassie, good to see you as well. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave any comments below. Now, what I want to bring up is this landmark study, in my opinion, that you may have never heard of. It's called the ACE study, ACE. And the ACE study stands for Adverse Childhood Experience Study. Now, this study took tens of thousands of individuals. They had them fill out questionnaires, and these questionnaires were based off of their past experience as a child. And so this study assessed the effects of their childhood, any childhood abuse, and anything related in adverse childhood experiences, and how that related as a public health problem. Now, what's interesting, I'll just kind of give you the shortcut to the results. The results here, the more experiences you had, 18 and under, so that would be categorized as childhood, 18 and under, the more adverse experiences you had as a child, the greater and worse potential your health outcomes will be later in life. So again, more experiences, abuse that you experienced or been around situationally as a child 18 and under will increase your potential of health problems later on in life. Now that's not a death sentence, because I'm going to talk about some strategies here at the end that you can take back and regain your psychological fitness, as I would call it. Now, here's a question you may have. What accounts for adverse childhood experiences? And some of the things from the study here are listed as physical abuse, sexual emotional abuse, physical neglect. You had a family member or household member, or maybe even yourself, were incarcerated, emotional neglect, domestic violence, household substance abuse, household mental illness, whether they were diagnosed properly or not, and parental separation or divorce. These all are categories, and I'm sure there's more of an extensive list that count for adverse childhood experiences. But the more you had these and experienced these through all the way up to 18 and under in your childhood, increases the potential later on in life for more health problems for you. Now, I find that as a landmark study that's just super important, because it's fascinating to me on this reason that here's some statistics that if we were to eliminate as much as possible, if we could, our childhood adverse experiences, meaning that as adults that we grow up and we raise our own families and our own kids, or influences of other kids, if we can help eliminate any of these said childhood adverse experiences, listen to the results that could happen. The work productivity would go up 61%. That's huge, especially in the landscape of today. If you're into business and hiring, the productivity today is atrocious. It's hard to get good quality employees, right? Number two, 67% decrease in suicide and life dissatisfaction. I think that's huge. I think there's a lot of people that are walking around in life not knowing what satisfies them, what their purpose is, and of course a lot of people, even in the past few years, committing suicide because they don't think they have another option, whether mental, emotionally, or situationally, what's going on. And then lastly, a decrease 56% in anxiety. So if we can take on the role of helping our children and future children avoid some of these preventable, in some cases, adverse childhood experiences, we are literally changing the outcome of our society, but also these future brains and these future kids, for the things that they may or may not do that be super productive in society, but also to raise healthy individuals and families. So this study, I find that it's a landmark study and it's super important, and you may have never heard of it. So if you've heard of this ACE study, go ahead and do a thumbs up. If you haven't, don't hit a thumbs up. Most people haven't heard of it. But this the ACE study captures the cumulative negative impact on social and emotional, cognitive, development, and other impairments in the function of the brain and the body systems. I think that's imperative, because this study translates that as we look at the social, the emotional, and the cognitive development, this is the impact on our function of our brain and, of course, the other bodily systems of our body. Now, as a corrective chiropractor, obviously I talk a lot about the function and performance of the brain and the nervous system, because those are huge things for you and your overall health. Now, these impairments that we are talking about and highlighting in this ACE study really go back to biological pathways. And these biological pathways, if they're impaired, basically the communication from brain to body and back, will create a higher likelihood for your potential future outcomes of higher potential for illness, disease, disability, and even early mortality rate. I think this is just, it should be mind-blowing. I know it is to me because literally your past has an impact on you, but it doesn't define you. It doesn't have to define you. So let's talk about, I'm going to put up a poll here. Let me see if I can find my button for a second. Where's my poll? Nope, sorry. Sorry if I can't find my poll. Anyways, I was going to put a poll up here that said, where do you think that your regulation of your emotions and thoughts come from? And so I was going to put up there, it comes from your spouse or your significant other, or the second option was going to be, it comes from you. And if you guessed correctly, yes, it comes from you. You have control over your thoughts and your emotion. And so this is how I'm going to tell you where that comes from, the anatomy and physiology, and how then we can talk about strategies. Again, if you're joining us live or in the replay, go ahead, say hi, leave a thumbs up. Leave any questions that you have below. I'll answer them later on when I get a chance. So if you're going to watch this, please leave a question if you have any. So self-regulation of our thoughts and our emotions come from part of your brain. It's called the prefrontal cortex. That prefrontal cortex is the front part of your brain. Now, the prefrontal cortex, its function deals with social skills, personality, impulse control, cognitive flexibility, problem solving, decision making, and reasoning. Now, when we're in a chronic stress response, meaning that the system of our body, there's a stress system, is elicited, this part, if it's excessively being triggered, will actually block the prefrontal cortex from actually functioning and working the way it's supposed to. And the reason in that motion is when it's an acute situation, a stress response, you're not supposed to think intelligently typically when a grizzly bear is in front of you. You want to have your body do a physiological shift to move your body to either fight or flee the situation. Now, when this becomes excessive, meaning the chronic stressors of life, and it's triggering this physiology to be releasing cortisol, it will then impact the function, the blood flow to the area of the prefrontal cortex. And why that's important is because that area seems to become dysfunctional, almost in regards to being shut off, not completely, but can't operate fully in terms of social skills, problem solving. And this could relate to how you handle situations and patterns of you feel perceived stress of whether it's around a situation or a person. And so this will put you into patterns of feeling anxiety, or chronically there's depression that's happening with people, or digestive issues, low energy, or even outbursts and behavioral differences. This is all because of the chronic stress response. The hormone cortisol is being stimulated excessively, and then it blocks that part of the brain. Now, that part of the brain, like I said, is helpful for you to regulate your thoughts and your emotions. Now, this is key, and I want you to kind of make note of this. Emotional symptoms. So if you're feeling any type of emotional distress, anxiety, unhappy, uneasy, whatever it may be, those emotional symptoms represent the same thing as physical symptoms to the body. So what do I mean by that? When we are emotionally stressed, just like when we're physically stressed, it creates stress in our body, shifts the physiology, and that physiology moves us eventually down the road of either toxicity or deficiency. Let's define that real quick. Toxicity is poisoning the cell. So you can provide something for the body that it doesn't necessarily need in excess, and it becomes toxic. So let me give you an example, because a lot of people think extreme of, hey, I take medication or I overdo alcohol. Yes, those are all examples of toxicity, but let's talk about some things such as you're overeating emotionally. So you're taking in more calories, more energy source, and then you're not expending it. That can create energy toxicity for your body, have havoc on your hormones, have havoc on your metabolism. That's an example. And then deficiency. That's pretty self-explanatory. You're not providing a requirement that the body needs emotionally or physically, and then you start to create deficient aspects on many different levels of your body. So it could be breakdown, it could be, yes, symptomatic things that you may notice or feel, but even on a nutritional level, right? So vitamins, nutrients, all those things have an impact and shift the physiology of the body. Okay, so when we have emotional symptoms, and they are the same thing as physical symptoms, just in a different format, this is where your mind is saying, something is wrong, please change the environment or your interpretation of that. Let me say that again. Your mind is saying when you're emotionally distressed, please change your environment, so get out of the environment, or if you can't do that, please change your interpretation of that. And how do you do that? Is through regulation of the prefrontal cortex, and I'm going to talk about some strategies that you can do on your own that can help you with your psychological fitness and making it more robust for not only in the situational but also down the road. All right, this is where I'll insert chiropractic. How does corrective chiropractic fit in here? Well, when we're emotionally stressed, okay, that has a physiological change on our body. We've all had a long day of emotionally being stressed, whether it's work, schedule, demands, or just a really bad day, things aren't going your way, and you're perceiving, what else is next? Why does this keep happening to me? That has a physiological change on your body physiologically. So what that does is it creates muscles that will start to become more tense in some areas and then create patterns of weakness. And so these muscles, when they become tense, are only responding based off of your interpretation of messages from the brain to parts of the body's muscles, tendons, ligaments. These muscles attach, they anchor to the structure of your spine. The further you stay in these distressed states, it starts to create tension and pulling in one area, weakness in the other, and then that creates shifts. These shifts then create a compound negative feedback loop of making the pattern worse, more stress for the brain, more stress for the body. If you're just joining us live or join us live, go ahead, say hi, leave a comment below. I want to know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions, leave them below. I'll answer them when I get a chance. We're talking about the brain, in mind, your past, and your psychological fitness. So that's where chiropractic fits in, helping to find these areas that aren't moving well, creating dysfunctional communication in these joints, getting them to function and move properly again, which then changes the signals from being stressed and inflamed to being healthy and energizing. But also, there's another point to this whole point of creating health. You've got to change the interpretation. You've got to change the environment. So this is why Lifestyle Strategies and this whole group is very adamant about helping you change those things that are in your control. All right, so let's finish up and talk about some of these strategies that can be helpful for you to create a more robust and psychological fitness level for you and your mind and your emotional health. All right, Cassie, you said just getting help for tense muscles due to all stresses. You can do massage work and any type of soft tissue, but again, it's not addressing the underlying core problem, which is going to be the interpretation, the mental emotional part, and potentially too, if you have a core problem with the structure of your spine, that's impacting the function of your brain and your nervous system. So you need to have those tested and looked at by a corrective chiropractor, not a traditional chiropractor, but you can use those as well, and there's a difference between those. Good question. All right, so here's some of the strategies. When you create positive body thoughts, and so what I mean by that, when you start to move your body, create these requirements. Your body has requirements. Think of these things as nourishing aspects for your mind, your body, and your spirit. They come in forms of physical requirements, emotional requirements, and of course, chemical requirements. And so this is why exercising, movement, we're not doing enough. The average person in their lifespan is sitting 32 years of their life. What do you think that's doing to not only your body, the structure of your spine, but also the performance of your brain and your mind? And of course, it's not doing things well, right? So it's creating more of the problem. But when you start to move, when you start to create these healthy habits, whether it's taking walks a day, whether it's 2, 3, 10-minute walks a day, which are super helpful, working on some foam rolling, some spinal hygiene exercises. These are all things that are in the guide section, just to plug that you have access to in this group. Hi, Christina. Good to see you. If you have any questions, leave the comments below. I'll answer them after I get a chance. And again, welcome. Thank you. So, exercise, foam rolling, right? But let's talk about the physical impact. When you do physical things, it has an impact on your mental emotional health. We all been there. You've worked out, you've had exercise, and you know how you feel endorphin-wise afterwards, and you want to do it again. Yes, sometimes it may be a little bit of a struggle to get going into those patterns of creating more movement, but I'm telling you, if you just do little movements and work up to more of the ideal, yes, swimming does help. Anything that you like, whether it's yoga, walking, resistance training, do something and do it on a regular basis. All right. But the mental emotional, so some of that stuff, mental emotional, let's talk about that. We're going to dive into stress physiology and stress reduction. So when you're stressed, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or chemically, generically, that elicits the same stress response pathway. No doubt about it that those are different categories, right? Physical stress, mental, emotional stress, but they all elicit the same pathway. Your brain doesn't know the difference between physical stress, chemical stress from eating inflammatory foods, or emotional stress that you're perceiving that somebody's out to hurt you. It doesn't matter. It elicits the stress response system, and then, like I had already talked about earlier, elicits cortisol. The longer that cortisol is being excessively stimulated, it's turning off the self-regulation of the thoughts and emotions part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. All right, here's some of your strategies. Let's wrap up. You can identify your values in life. And so in our Think by Design webinar and also in the guide section up in the group, please utilize them. I have resources there for you. I walk you through how to identify your values. And this is kind of where you really get crystal clear on your philosophy and your values in life. And when that happens, when opportunities come your way, you can literally say yes and no to opportunities that will benefit you, your health, and your family's health. If you don't, guess what? You're potentially inviting some type of destruction in contradiction to your life, your family's life, and your health. And so that's up to you. You can always change that and get crystal clear in your philosophy and your values. That exercise, identifying your innate values, is in a PDF form in the guide section, Think by Design, so check that out. Self-talk exercises. So these are another exercise where you talk yourself through your emotions and what you're actually experiencing. It's good to highlight your emotions because you need to identify them, but don't stay camped there, and you don't have to judge them. But after you've kind of calmed down out of the situation, maybe it'd be good to reflect back onto it and really look at and see if that emotion is actually something that is truthful or is something that's a lie that you keep telling yourself because of your past, your current situation, or something that you're stressing about in the future. Deep diaphragmatic breathing. This is free and this works greatly to get you to calm down out of the stress response. So this is where you would breathe in through your nose or your mouth deeply. Belly would expand out. Hold that for somewhere between 3 to 6 seconds. Then slowly exhale out 3 to 6 seconds. Hold that for 3 to 6 seconds. Then take in another breath for 3 to 6 seconds. It's called box breathing. So take a breath in, hold it for 3 to 6 seconds. Exhale it for 3 to 6 seconds. Inhale it for 3 to 6 seconds. Exhale it for 3 to 6 seconds. And literally what this does is when you exhale after holding it, it stimulates the brake pedal system of the stress response or stress reduction. You do that 2 or 3 times consecutively in a row, you definitely will feel a physiological change for your body. So that's free. Do that anytime, anywhere, absolutely free. Meditation and mind quieting. I have a PDF up in the guide section too to walk you through how to do that. It's super simple. It takes some work to really practice it and be good at it. It takes as little as 5 minutes if you only have 5 minutes to do that, and then work up to as long as you need or multiple times a day. And then there's some other things such as light and sound therapy, and there's a book called The Emotion Code. If you're really curious and really excited to maybe start diving into some of this emotional work that you can do on your end, I would check out the book. It's called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And he goes through and walks you through. There's a chart in the book that shows you how to identify trapped emotions, because emotions can get trapped physically in your body, and tells you and shows you how you can release that or work with a practitioner that's certified in that, and you can do that as well. So I want to thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions, leave them below, whether it's live or in the replay. I appreciate you being part of this community. Remember, the whole goal here is to engage, ask questions, so it can really unlock your potential for you and your family's health, for mental emotional health. Until our next Health Knox series, I want to thank you and remind you that your health is worth it. You're worth it. Please put the work into it. And if you have any questions, I'm here to help you. Make it a great day.